I just want to debate this guy, but, and I'm going to demand a drug test, too, by the way. I am. No, I really am. I don't want him coming in like the State of the Union. He was high as a kite. I said, is that Joe up there? A beautiful robe? And by the end of the evening, he's like, well, he was exhausted, right? Now, we're going to demand a drug test.
Speaking at a GOP event in St. Paul, Minnesota, the presumptive Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump telling the crowd he's going to ask for President Biden to be drug tested before their first debate next month.
CNN hosting the debate June 27th. There are other lawmakers who have alleged Biden was on something the day of the State of the Union. So those allegations have been out there. Carrie Sheffield is here, senior policy analyst with the Independent Women's Forum. Brett Buchanan, a GOP pollster. Thank you both for being on. Carrie, we'll start with you. Trump saying Biden, quote, as high as a kite during his State of the Union. Pretty bold statement, a bold accusation as well. Neither candidate ended up taking drug tests before their two 2020 debates. There is a lot of laughs in the crowd, but seemingly, do you believe Trump was serious about this? Do you think that this would actually happen, both candidates receiving drug tests?
I don't think Biden's going to agree to this, but I do think it's a smart tactic by former President Trump to call attention to President Biden's health, because a majority of people in this country looking at polling, they think that Biden has health issues. And so I think it's worth asking questions about his health when you're talking about his mental acuity, the fact that you have, since World War II, President Biden is the least popular president. I mean, that's really hard to do. So, and a lot of it has to do with this just overall feeling of incompetence that he has. And it really started with the withdrawal of Afghanistan, coming out of Afghanistan, where you had some $80 billion in American equipment left there. We could have used that equipment in Ukraine instead of continuing to fund it in this way. Why wasn't the Biden administration strategic? It's because Joe Biden is reckless. And when you look at how he's shaking hands with fake people in the crowd, he's asking if dead reporters are in the press conferences. It's worth asking these questions about his mental acuity. And I think that's what President Trump is doing here.
And now we've got two debates, at least on the calendar. So until they happen, we'll wait and see. But Brent, when you look at polling, how does this fare with folks? I mean, do we want to hear from these presidential candidates, as we have for decades, actually debate issues that Americans care about?
I just don't think a whole lot's going to change within this race with the candidates themselves. I mean, there's almost nothing that could be said about Donald Trump, nothing that's going to come out in these court cases that makes people who previously had a positive opinion of him say, okay, well, now I don't like the guy. And same with Biden. And I get where the president is going. Donald Trump is going with talking about these drug tests. But if you look at the reality of how do you change a race and how do you change votes, you've got to make it relevant to the voter. And I think he missed an opportunity to say, because he's on drugs, this is what's happening to your income. Because he is high as a kite, then this is what it means for your inability to take your family out to dinner anymore, because you can barely afford groceries, let alone anything fun with your family. And so I hope that that's the tack that Donald Trump takes within these debates. But I really don't think that there's going to be something said or done by either of these candidates that voters are like, I didn't know that previously. I really believe it's going to be external factors and forces that occur, and it's going to be how these two candidates respond to those that might change the race.
Kerry, I wanted to go to President Biden. He recently spoke at an HBCU commencement, Morehouse, giving that commencement address there, again, to black graduates. And the address was anything but encouraging. If you listen back, it was really hate-filled, race-baiting speech. He brought up George Floyd and how those there, again, graduating have been not treated fairly by this country and how they've had to work 10 times as hard. There wasn't a lot of encouragement that you would typically see. Hey, hats off to you. You work so hard. Get out in the world and make a difference. But in fact, again, it just seemed hate-filled. It seemed race-baiting. It seemed as if he was talking in a condescending manner, essentially turning these graduates into victims, as you know, that Biden is struggling with the black vote in recent polling. Kerry.
You're totally right. He's grasping at straws. He's desperate. He's desperate about the fact that black voters are fleeing from him. And he thinks that if he can scare them, that's really what this is a scare tactic, an attempted scare tactic to try to scare black voters. Please don't leave me. Please don't leave me. But the truth is, people are seeing through this facade. And especially black voters, the condescending message that Joe Biden gave was that if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. That's racist. That's condescending. That is patriarchal, or patronizing, I should say. And so when you have this old white male politician, which I love old white men, nothing wrong with that. It's just the hypocrisy of the Democrat Party claiming to care for black people and wanting racial unity while you have him going and trying to stoke these divisions, as you say. And the truth of the matter is that for all Americans of all races, you're talking about mortgage payments have skyrocketed since Joe Biden took office because of inflation and what the Fed's doing, combined with the reckless spending that when the Democrats controlled both chambers had passed through. Sure. You're having a regulatory agenda that is hurting poor people, hurting black, brown, and struggling families the most. And so they're seeing through this.
Yeah, not to mention when we've seen sanctuary cities accept tens of thousands of migrants, folks who entered this country illegally and been given so many perks compared to taxpaying residents who've been there forever, not seeing the same sort of benefits. Wanted to move on to this before we have to let you go. House Democratic leadership reportedly formally pushing its members to vote against a Republican bill that would block a Washington, D.C. law allowing non-citizens to vote in local elections. So this pattern's played out several times in Congress as House Republicans take advantage of the majority in an attempt to overturn this progressive law passed by the district. Again, voting by people who aren't here as U.S. citizens is illegal in federal elections, but D.C. makes this acceptable. So, Brent, how do you see this playing out? Again, it seems as though Democrats are going to try to stop Republicans from having this happen.
Well, I'm sitting in Washington, D.C. right now, and I can tell you the city has become a disaster, and this is only going to make it worse. And Republicans really need to capitalize on this opportunity to say, look what the left is doing. Look at what progressives are doing to radically transform this country. And they're going to do it on the backs of folks who shouldn't be here because they did not come across in legal means. And this is one of the, I think, instances where we can say, look at what's happening at the border. And I know that that's probably not affecting you directly, but now this is going to affect you directly because of what we're not doing at the border. And it's making these second and third order connections for voters because we do a lot of work in the democracy protection space among conservatives. And the number one thing that they're concerned about is people who shouldn't be voting. Whether they got a ballot and they should not, whether they should not be registered because they're illegal. Yeah. And this is one thing that Republicans really need to jump on to increase trust in our elections.
Yeah. Carrie Sheffield, Brent Buchanan joining us. We do appreciate that. Good to see you both.